This building is a museum now, which means that its main function is to sit there and be visited. So its immediate surroundings are its own gardens and then bus lots, city streets, tourist kiosks, restaurants, that sort of thing. But if you go just over the hill to a similar building, say the Sergius and Bacchus Church, which is now the Little Hagia Sophia Mosque, Küçük Hagia Sophia, it's a working mosque now, converted from a church. The old men of the neighborhood will spend all day sitting on the front porch, conversing. People have shops immediately adjacent to it. They may come in and out for prayers. People have grown up and lived in that neighborhood with that mosque at the center all of their lives, and so they have a very different view of the building than I, as a scholar from another country, would have. When I teach architecture, I usually start with photographs, and I like to show a building in its surroundings. But to analyze a structure, you really have to look at the diagrams, because that's the way an architect begins. An architect thinks schematically. So the first thing that a floor plan can show you is how the architect thought about the building. I first of all try to make sure that they can understand the relationship between a photograph and a scheme, and I do walk them through how to read a plan at the beginning of a course. I also use a variety of other architectural diagrams, sections, elevations, and isometric drawings, which give different kinds of insight into the building. When I present this to students, what I do is I pick out an obvious feature. For this building, it would be the dome. For instance, I can show an interior, or for that matter, an exterior picture, a photograph of the building, and then I can also very easily pick out the dome in a plan. It'll always be represented in a dotted line, a circle in the middle of the building. It's as simple as putting two slides next to each other and saying, see this? There it is on the plan. Smaller features are harder to find. An easy one I see here is columns. Columns are very easy to identify, both in plan and in picture. In a plan, a column looks like a polka dot. I also, of course, don't just present the building as a floor plan or as an exercise in logic. When I teach any building, and particularly any building associated with a spiritual tradition, I try to teach the building as a living entity in which things happen. I try to give them some sense of the original lighting. Is this a bright space, a dark space? And I try to walk them through following the sequence of spaces they might have followed as, say, a worshiper in a church like this in the 6th century. First you're in the low narthex, you come through a door, there is this rather baffling side space you have to negotiate, and then you are suddenly in this enormous and very tall space with a huge dome floating overhead. So I try to give them some sense of the experience of walking through this building, which is hard to do with slides because architecture is a spatial thing, and much of the experience of architecture depends on your moving through a three-dimensional space. What I do, of course, in my courses is assign them architecture projects where they do just that, where they go visit a sacred structure, and I have them look at all of these things: the plan, the shape of the building, the exterior, how it sits in its location. I have them learn how the ceremonies take place inside and think about how the building was arranged for those ceremonies. I have them think about the objects that would be in there and the sorts of decoration that are appropriate for that spiritual tradition.